Welcome to the Lure of Temptation. Each story is a personal encounter with weakness, through which each person will rise up to escape the traps of temptation around. And today, we come to the topic: long-term mental effects of gambling. What if gambling doesn't just cost you money, but your mind? Behind the flashing lights and adrenaline rush lies a darker truth: anxiety, depression, and mental collapse. In this episode of The Lure of Temptation, we uncover the hidden psychological damage gambling leaves behind long after the bets are over. Gambling, for many, begins as a harmless pastime. The thrill of a game, the allure of quick wins, the social buzz of a night at the casino, or a few online bets among friends. But beneath this surface, gambling can carry profound and lasting consequences for mental well-being. Understanding the long-term mental effects of gambling requires a look beyond the immediate excitement, deep into the intricate and sometimes perilous web of psychological impacts it weaves over time. When someone gambles, their brain experiences a dopamine rush, an intense feeling of pleasure that results from the anticipation and possibility of winning. This natural chemical reaction is part of what makes gambling so irresistible for some. Over time, however, repeated exposure to these dopamine bursts can change the brain's reward systems. For people who gamble frequently or compulsively, the brain can become conditioned to crave these dopamine hits, gradually leading to a cycle of desire and disappointment that is difficult to break. One of the most significant long-term mental effects is the development of a gambling disorder, also known as pathological gambling or gambling addiction. This recognized mental health condition shares key characteristics with substance addictions. The affected person may find themselves powerless to resist the urge to gamble, even when aware of damaging consequences. The compulsive need to chase losses or replicate former wins can come to dominate their thoughts and behavior. This loss of control is often accompanied by deep feelings of shame, guilt, and helplessness. Chronic gambling can also lead to anxiety and depression. The emotional roller coaster of wins and losses, combined with the stress of concealing or justifying gambling behavior to others, can erode mental resilience. As gambling takes up more time and mental space, responsibilities and interests that once brought joy, satisfaction, or meaning may fall by the wayside. The resulting sense of emptiness is frequently compounded by financial hardship, broken relationships, and diminished self-esteem. Studies show that individuals with gambling problems are significantly more likely to experience major depressive episodes and anxiety disorders than the general population. Insomnia and disturbed sleep patterns are also common among those whose lives have been touched by gambling addiction. The persistent worry over mounting debts, the anticipation of the next opportunity to gamble, or the regret of resources lost can make it difficult to unwind and rest. The resulting sleep deprivation can further aggravate mood disorders, cognitive impairments, and emotional regulation, perpetuating a self-destructive cycle. One of the subtler but no less destructive mental effects is cognitive distortion. Problem gamblers often develop irrational beliefs and superstitions about their chances of winning, their ability to beat the system, or the inevitability of a lucky streak. These cognitive distortions can cloud judgment and fuel further risk-taking, even in the face of overwhelming losses. Over time, these patterns of magical thinking can become entrenched, making it hard to recognize reality or respond rationally to setbacks. There is also the toll gambling takes on relationships. The compulsive nature of gambling can lead to secrecy, dishonesty, and broken trust between family members, partners, and friends. Loved ones may feel betrayed or powerless, and gamblers may experience isolation or social withdrawal. This social disconnection further amplifies feelings of loneliness and despair, driving some deeper into gambling as a form of escape. Another critical aspect is the link between gambling and other mental health concerns. Research has indicated that those with long-standing gambling issues are more likely to struggle with substance use disorders, such as alcoholism or drug dependence. The overlap in the neurobiological mechanisms of addiction can create a vicious cycle, with each behavior feeding off the other. Co-occurring disorders make recovery significantly more challenging and increase the risk of lasting psychological harm. Perhaps most alarming is the increased risk of suicide tied to compulsive gambling. Studies have found that individuals with problem gambling are far more likely to contemplate, attempt, or die by suicide compared to the general population. Factors contributing to this risk include hopelessness over insurmountable debts, the collapse of personal relationships, overwhelming guilt and shame, and untreated mood or anxiety disorders. Families touched by a loved one's gambling addiction must be vigilant for signs of suicidal ideation and reach out for professional support whenever needed. The long-term mental effects of gambling are not confined to the gambler alone. Family members, friends, and children living in a household where gambling is a chronic presence can experience their own forms of trauma. Children may develop anxiety, behavioral problems, or feelings of insecurity. Spouses or partners might develop symptoms of depression, anxiety, or stress-related disorders, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as secondary trauma. Gambling's impact on mental health can also intersect with cultural and socio-economic factors. For some, the consequences are compounded by the stigma surrounding addiction or the lack of accessible mental health resources. In communities where gambling is normalized or even celebrated, it may be harder for individuals suffering from its effects to recognize their need for help or to speak openly about their struggles. Breaking free from the long-term mental effects of gambling is challenging, but not impossible. Many who have struggled with pathological gambling find hope and healing through a combination of therapeutic interventions, support groups, and lifestyle changes. Cognitive behavioral therapy, for instance, helps individuals identify distorted thought patterns and develop healthier coping mechanisms. Group support, such as Gamblers Anonymous, reduces isolation and creates a shared space for accountability and encouragement. There is also growing recognition of the need for public health initiatives to raise awareness around the risks of gambling and to offer accessible avenues for treatment and support. Prevention programs that educate individuals about the psychological risks, early warning signs, and available resources can reduce the number of people affected by gambling-related harm. Mental health professionals, meanwhile, are being trained to recognize and address gambling as part of a holistic approach to well-being. For those recovering from the grip of gambling addiction, a central part of healing involves rebuilding one's sense of self-worth and re-establishing damaged relationships. This takes time and patience, and, in many cases, the support of both loved ones and professionals. Recovery journeys may also include learning to manage money responsibly, finding new outlets for excitement and relaxation, and restoring routines that promote stability and mental health. The ripple effects of gambling extend wide, impacting individuals, families, and even entire communities. Its long-term mental impact can seem invisible at first, masked by the thrill of the game or hidden in silence and secrecy. But with greater understanding, compassion, and preparedness, both those who struggle and those who care about them can recognize the signs, seek help, and move towards a future in which mental well-being takes precedence over uncertain and fleeting gains. In reflecting on the long-term mental effects of gambling, it becomes clear that this is not merely an issue of personal willpower or morality. It is a public health challenge with profound implications for how we think about addiction, reward, resilience, and recovery. Recognizing the seriousness of these effects is the first step in supporting individuals and communities to find their way back to a more balanced, fulfilling, and healthy life, one where hope, connection, and mental well-being are restored to the center of the story. The damage caused by gambling isn't always visible, but it's real. Your peace of mind, your relationships, your self-worth, all can be lost in the silence. At the lure of temptation, we believe it's never too late to take your life back. If this story speaks to you or someone you love, don't walk this path alone. Subscribe for more real stories and recovery guides, and let's break free together.